The Kazon warships tore through the human fleet like a swarm of locusts, leaving only death and destruction in their wake. Captain Thomas Roberts gripped the armrests of his command chair, his knuckles white, as he watched the carnage unfold on the viewscreen. The expeditionary fleet, humanity's first foray into the uncharted reaches of space, was being annihilated before his eyes. Roberts had known the risks when he accepted command of the UESC Intrepid, the most advanced ship in the United Earth Space Command's arsenal, but nothing could have prepared him for the sheer savagery of the Kazan attack. Their weapons were unlike anything humanity had encountered before, ripping through the fleet's defenses like they were made of paper. In a matter of minutes, the once proud fleet was reduced to a handful of crippled ships, their crews dead or dying. Roberts knew that if he didn't act fast, the Intrepid would meet the same fate. He made a split-second decision, one that would either save humanity's future among the stars or doom it to oblivion. "Helm, break formation and engage the experimental FTL drive," Roberts ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "We're going to lead the Kazon away from the fleet." The Intrepid surged forward, its engines straining as it accelerated to impossible speeds. The Kazan ships gave chase, their weapons pounding the Intrepid's shields. Roberts knew that his ship couldn't outrun them forever, but he had to buy time for the remnants of the fleet to escape. As the Intrepid hurtled through the void, Roberts realized that the fate of humanity's future among the stars rested on his shoulders. He was the last line of defense against the Kazan, the only thing standing between them and total domination, and he would fight to his last breath to ensure that humanity's dream of reaching the stars would not be extinguished. The Intrepid shuddered violently as another salvo of Kazan weapons fire slammed into its shields. Captain Roberts gripped the chairs of his chair, his eyes sharp as he watched the readouts on the monitor fluctuate wildly. The experimental FTL drive was pushed to its limits, the ship's frame groaning under the immense stress of the high-speed pursuit. "Evasive maneuvers, pattern Delta 5, Roberts barked, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. "Target their shield generators and propulsion systems. We need to even the odds." The helmsman's fingers flew across the controls, sending the Intrepid into a dizzying spiral. The ship's advanced weaponry lashed out, piercing the Kazan shields with precision strikes. Explosions blossomed across the enemy vessel's hulls, the Intrepid's superior technology proving its worth. But the Intrepid was not invulnerable. The ship shuddered again as a lucky shot from a Kazan cruiser breached its shields, sending showers of sparks cascading across the bridge. Alarms blared, the acrid scent of smoke filling the air. "Damage report," Roberts demanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Hull breach on decks 7 and 8, the tactical officer replied, his face grim. "Shields down to 30%. We can't take much more of this, Captain." Roberts nodded, his mind racing. They couldn't outrun the Kazan forever. They needed a new strategy, a way to turn the tables on their pursuers. Suddenly, the doors to the bridge hissed open, revealing the haggard form of Chief Engineer Marcus Hawkins. The veteran engineer's face was streaked with sweat and grime, his eyes alight with a fierce commitment. "Captain, I've got an idea," Hawkins said, his voice rough with exhaustion. "If we can divert power from the FTL drive to the weapon systems, we might be able to punch through their shields and take out their command ship." Roberts considered the proposal for a moment, weighing the risks against the potential rewards. It was a gamble, but one they had to take. "Do it," he said, his voice firm. "And while you're at it, see if you can boost our own shields. We're going to need every advantage we can get." Hawkins nodded, a grim smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Aye, Captain. I'll make it happen." As the engineer disappeared back into the bowels of the ship, Roberts turned his attention back to the viewscreen. The Kazan ships were closing in, their weapons pounding the Intrepid's battered shields. But Roberts had a plan now, a way to turn the tables on their pursuers. It was a long shot, but it was their only chance. "Helm, bring us about," he ordered, his voice steady. "We're going to take the fight to them." The Intrepid swung around, its engines flaring as it charged headlong into the Kazan formation. The enemy ships scattered, caught off guard by the sudden change in tactics. And then the Intrepid's weapons opened fire, a blinding barrage of energy that ripped through the Kazon shields like they were made of paper. The command ship, a massive vessel dripping with weaponry, shuddered under the onslaught, its hull buckling and twisting as the Intrepid's weapons found their mark. For a moment it seemed as though the Kazon might break, their formation shattering under the ferocity of the Intrepid's attack. But then the enemy ships regrouped, their weapons lashing out with renewed fury. The Intrepid shuddered under the barrage, its shields flickering and failing. But still it pressed on, its crew refusing to yield in the face of overwhelming odds. They would fight to the last, Captain Roberts knew, to ensure that humanity's dream of reaching the stars would not be extinguished. And even if they fell here, in this distant corner of the galaxy, their sacrifice would not be in vain. For they had shown the Kazon and all the other alien races that sought to dominate the stars that humanity would not go quietly into the night, that even in the face of impossible odds, the human spirit would endure, unyielding and unbroken. And that was a legacy worth fighting for, no matter the consequences. The Intrepid limped through space, its hull scarred and blackened from the recent battle. Captain Roberts stood at the viewscreen, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead. The ship had survived, but at a terrible cost. The corridors were filled with the wounded, and the engineering team worked tirelessly to keep the damaged systems online. A sudden beep from the communications console broke the tense silence on the bridge. Lieutenant Chen's eyes widened as she listened to the incoming transmission. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," she reported, her voice tight with urgency. "It's from Arcadia." Roberts felt his heart sink. Arcadia, one of humanity's most promising colony worlds, now under attack. He turned to his first officer, Commander Elena Valdez, who nodded grimly. "Put it on screen," Roberts ordered. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a haggard-looking man in a torn civilian uniform. Behind him, smoke and flames were visible through a cracked window. "This is Governor Trent of Arcadia," the man said, his voice crackling with static. "We're under heavy attack by Kazon forces. They've breached our defenses and are enslaving our people. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need immediate assistance." The transmission cut out abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Roberts clenched his fists, his mind racing through their options. "Set a course for Arcadia, maximum speed," he commanded. "We can't let another world fall to the Kazon." As the Intrepid sped towards Arcadia, Roberts gathered his senior staff in the briefing room. The ship's holographic display showed the Kazon invasion in progress, their ships swarming around the planet like angry hornets. "We can't take them head-on," Roberts said, his voice grim, "but we have something they don't expect, our stealth technology." He outlined his plan, watching as his officers' expressions shifted from doubt to willpower. It was risky, but it was their only chance to save Arcadia and strike a blow against the Kazon. Hours later, Roberts found himself crouched in the shadows of a massive Kazon terraforming facility. Beside him, Commander Valdez and Lieutenant Sato checked their weapons, their faces set with concentration. "Remember," Roberts whispered, "our goal is to disrupt their operations and make contact with the resistance. We're not here for a frontal assault." They moved silently through the facility, planting explosives at key junctions and sabotaging control systems. As they worked, they caught glimpses of the horror unfolding outside. Humans in chains, forced to work under the watchful eyes of Kazon overseers. In a secluded maintenance tunnel, they finally made contact with the resistance. A group of ragged but determined colonists led them to a hidden bunker where they met with the resistance leaders. "We thought we were alone," said Sarah Connor, a former colonial marine who now led the resistance. "But with your help, we might have a chance." Roberts shared his plan, providing the resistance with advanced weapons and tactical data. As they prepared for the coordinated attack, he couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this was the turning point they had been waiting for. The next day, as the Kazon commanders gathered for their daily briefing, chaos erupted. Explosions rocked the terraforming facilities, alarms blared, and the skies lit up with weapons fire as the Intrepid launched precision strikes from orbit. Roberts led his team through the streets, coordinating with the resistance fighters. Everywhere, humans threw off their chains and turned on their oppressors. The element of surprise was total. The Kazon had never expected their slaves to fight back with such ferocity. As the battle raged, Roberts received word that similar uprisings were breaking out on other Kazan-occupied worlds. The spark of rebellion had ignited a firestorm. But the Kazan were not about to give up their prize so easily. As Roberts and his team fought their way back to their extraction point, the sky darkened with the arrival of a massive Kazan battle fleet. "They're here for revenge," Valdez said, her voice tight with worry. Roberts nodded grimly. "Then we'll give them a fight they'll never forget." The Intrepid rose to meet the Kazan armada, its experimental weapons charged and ready. As the ship shuddered under the first barrage of enemy fire, Roberts knew that the real battle was only just beginning. The Intrepid shuddered as Kazan weapons fire slammed into its shields, the bridge awash in a sea of flashing red warning lights. "Shields at 15%, Lieutenant Chen shouted over the din of alarms. "We can't take much more of this, Captain." Roberts gripped the arms of his chair, his mind racing. They had won the battle for Arcadia, but now faced annihilation at the hands of the vengeful Kazan fleet. As another blast rocked the ship, an idea crystallized in his mind. "Helm, plot a course directly for the Kazan flagship," he ordered. "Engineering, divert all power to weapons and shields." Commander Valdez shot him a questioning look. "Sir, we're outgunned and outnumbered. What's the plan?" Robert's eyes narrowed. "Sometimes the best defense is a good offense, Commander. We're going to hit them where it hurts." The Intrepid surged forward, its engines straining as it plowed through the Kazan formation. Enemy ships scattered, caught off guard by the brazen maneuver. Roberts watched the tactical display, waiting for the perfect moment. "Now, all weapons, fire on the flagship's bridge." A blinding barrage of energy lanced out from the Intrepid, slamming into the weakest point of the Kazan command ship. The enemy vessel's shields flickered and failed, its bridge erupting in a ball of fire. Chaos engulfed the Kazan fleet as their command structure crumbled. The Intrepid pressed its advantage, picking off confused enemy ships one by one. Within minutes, the tide of battle had turned. As the last Kazan cruiser limped away in retreat, a cheer went up on the Intrepid's bridge. But Roberts knew this victory was merely the beginning of a longer struggle. In the days that followed, reports flooded in from across human space. The Arcadian uprising had sparked a firestorm of rebellion on other occupied worlds. Newly liberated colonies clamored for weapons and support to fight their Kazan oppressors. Roberts paced the length of his ready room, digesting the latest intelligence reports. The Kazan were reeling, but far from defeated. Their emperor, Zoratho XIV, had issued a galaxy-wide decree calling for the brutal suppression of any further resistance. A chime at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he called out. Commander Valdez strode in, her face set in iron will. "Captain, we've received word from Starfleet Command. They're mobilizing a task force to push back against the Kazan, but it will take weeks to assemble." Roberts nodded, his mind already racing ahead. "We don't have weeks, Elena. Every day we wait, more innocent lives are lost." He turned to face her, his eyes blazing with intensity. "I think it's time we took the fight to them." Valdez raised an eyebrow. "What did you have in mind, sir?" "Something they'll never expect," Roberts replied, calling up a holographic display of the Kazon home system. "We're going to hit them at the heart of their empire." Over the next several hours, Roberts outlined his audacious plan to a select group of officers and resistance leaders. They would disguise a small fleet as Kazan supply ships, using intelligence gathered from captured vessels to bypass the defenses of Kazbara, the Kazan capital world. A strike team led by Roberts himself would infiltrate the Imperial Palace and confront Emperor Zora directly. It was a risky gambit, but one that could potentially end the war in a single stroke. As the Intrepid and its makeshift fleet of allies prepared for the dangerous mission, Roberts found himself in the ship's airlock, donning a set of captured Kazan battle armor. Commander Valdez and Lieutenant Sato stood beside him, similarly outfitted. "Remember," Roberts said, his voice muffled by the alien helmet, "our goal is to reach the Emperor. Avoid unnecessary confrontations if possible. We need to end this war, not escalate it further. The infiltration went smoothly at first. Their disguised ships slipped past the outer defenses of Kazbara without incident. But as they approached the sprawling capital city, alarms began to blare. "They're onto us," Sato hissed, checking the readings on his wrist computer. "Security forces are mobilizing across the city." Roberts nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to move fast. All teams execute your objectives. We'll rendezvous at the palace gates in 30 minutes. The strike force scattered, each group heading for their assigned targets. Roberts led his team through the winding streets of the Kazan capital, using back alleys and maintenance tunnels to avoid detection. As they neared the towering spires of the Imperial Palace, the sound of weapons fire erupted from all directions. The other teams were creating diversions, drawing attention away from Roberts's primary objective. They fought their way through waves of elite Kazan guards, their superior training and earth weapons giving them an edge. But the sheer numbers of the enemy threatened to overwhelm them. Finally, battered and bloodied, they reached the ornate doors of the throne room. Roberts turned to his team, his eyes meeting each of theirs in turn. "Whatever happens next," he said, his voice steady, "remember why we're here, to end this war and bring peace to both our peoples." With a nod to Sato, Roberts reached for the control panel. The massive doors slid open, revealing the cavernous throne room beyond. And there, seated upon a massive chair of gleaming metal, sat Emperor Zora Thupert Tinth, architect of so much suffering and destruction. Roberts stepped forward, removing his helmet. "Emperor Zora," he called out, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "I've come to talk." "Negotiate," Roberts said firmly, his hand resting on his holstered weapon. "This war ends now." Emperor Zora regarded the human captain with cold, calculating eyes. "You've come far, Captain Roberts, farther than any human before you. But do you truly believe you can dictate terms to the Kazan Empire?" "I believe we can find a way forward that doesn't involve more bloodshed," Roberts replied, taking a cautious step closer. "Your people are suffering as much as ours. This war serves no one but those who profit from chaos and destruction." For a tense moment, the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Then, slowly, Emperor Zora nodded. Perhaps you are right, human. Let us talk." In the days that followed, a tenuous peace took hold between humanity and the Kazan Confederacy. The intrepid, battered but unbroken, became a symbol of this fragile new era. As Roberts and his crew worked to solidify the peace, a new player emerged on the galactic stage. The Myrakan, a race of tall, ethereal beings, presented themselves as neutral brokers, offering to oversee the implementation of the peace accords. At first, their arrival seemed fortuitous, a stabilizing presence in a volatile situation. But as weeks turned to months, unsettling reports began to filter in. Commander Valdez brought the latest intelligence to Roberts in his ready room, her face etched with concern. "Captain, we've received disturbing news from Novaterra," she said, calling up a holographic display. "The entire population of their largest city, it's gone, vanished without a trace." Roberts leaned forward, studying the data. "Any signs of violence? Forced relocation?" Valdez shook her head. "Nothing. It's as if they simply ceased to exist. And there's more. Several other worlds under Myrakan supervision have reported similar incidents, along with massive resource depletion." A chill ran down Roberts' spine. "I think it's time we took a closer look at our new allies. Set a course for the Myrakan command ship. We need answers." The Intrepid dropped out of warp near a massive crystalline vessel that shimmered with an otherworldly light. As Roberts led a team to board the Myrakan ship, an eerie silence enveloped them. They moved through corridors that seemed to shift and twist, defying normal geometry. In a vast chamber filled with pulsing, organic-looking technology, Roberts found what they were looking for, and wished he hadn't. Holographic displays showed entire planets being engulfed in a strange, dark energy. As Roberts reached out to touch one of the controls, a violent tremor shook the ship. "Captain," Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled over the comm. "Something's happening. The Myrakan vessel is generating some kind of spatial distortion. It's affecting the Intrepid, too." Roberts felt a sickening lurch as reality itself seemed to bend around them. The familiar stars outside the viewports vanished, replaced by a swirling maelstrom of impossible colors and shapes. When the disorientation passed, Roberts found himself standing on the bridge of the Intrepid, but the view outside was like nothing he had ever seen. They were adrift in a twisted, labyrinthine realm where the laws of physics seemed more like suggestions. "Status report," he barked, fighting to maintain his composure. "We're cut off from normal space, sir," Chen replied, her voice shaking. "And we're not alone. The Myricon ship is here too." Roberts gripped the arms of his chair, his mind racing. They had stumbled upon something far more insidious than they could have imagined. And now, trapped in this dark dimension, they would have to find a way to unravel the mystery and find a way home before it was too late. As the Intrepid and the Myricon vessel faced each other in this alien realm, Roberts realized that the battle for survival had only just begun. The true nature of the Myricon and the cosmic horror they represented was about to be revealed.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.